I did a little research. I looked into those special psyche locks you mentioned, Mr. Nick.
You did? It's great. I really appreciate it.
A red psyche lock protects a secret the person is consciously trying to hide. If the person falls under questioning, the lock breaks and the truth comes out.
Yep, that's exactly how I got the truth out of Detective Fulbright and Director Cosmos.
But a black psyche lock protects a secret from the deepest place in a person's heart. A secret that the person isn't even consciously aware of.
So even they don't know it's there.
Athena isn't trying to keep anything from you on purpose. For some reason, part of her heart and her memories are sealed off, even from herself.
Okay, so all I have to do is break the psyche locks.
According to my research, a black psyche lock is like a heavy chain that linking around one's heart. If they are ripped off by force, it could cause permanent damage to a person's soul.
In other words, if I'm not careful, I could traumatize Athena for good. Hells, could you stay by Athena's side? She must be suffering under the weight of such a heavy burden.
Alright, but will you be alright by yourself, Mr. Nick?
I'm up against Edgeworth. I have to be able to give this trial all of my focus and strength.
And you can't do that if I'm here. I'll just hold you back.
No, that's not it. I just meant I can relax and concentrate if I knew you were with Athena. You're the only one who could do it, Pearls.
Alright, I'll do it then. Good luck, Mr. Nick.
Good, now that that bitch is out of the way. Good, now that my mind is at ease, I'd better get ready. I'll just tidy up the evidence and take out what I don't need. It's time to end this nightmare that started 7 years ago. Defense, prosecution, and judge. There are even people in the gallery. The roof has been completely blown off and the walls have collapsed. But today, this ruin is my battleground. Oh, some facsimile. Is that facsimile? Facsimile? Facsimile thereof is now in session for the trial of Athena's science. Not a facsimile, old man. This is a proper official trial. Take this more seriously or you'll start to hear the bones of the hostages snap. Please try not to upset Miss Blackwell. I'm begging you. Court is now in session for the very serious and very proper trial of Athena's science. This is no trial. It's nothing more than a ridiculous farce. What did you say? Edgeworth, did you not hear what I just said to His Honour? However, this ridiculous farce has a very important meaning for our legal system. Called a case of the UR1 incident, in which a prosecutor was found guilty of murder. That case ushered in the odious dark age of the law. I see what you're after. If we can find the real truth behind the case today... Precisely. The darkness will be dispelled and glory shall be restored to the court system. Prosecutor Edgeworth, you sound as if you know something of this truth. I do indeed. A new suspect has emerged in the UR1 case. For 7 years, Simon Blackwell has refused to speak in order to cover for someone else. Brace yourself, Phoenix. Here it comes. I'm sorry, Wright, but the situation is what it is, and I must do what I must. The prosecution moves to indict Athena Sykes on the count of the murder in first degree.
Regardless the circumstance, I intend to question the defendant with all I have. For that is a part of my creed.
Then you'd better bring it.
If the two of you are ready. Court is now in session for the trial of Athena Sykes.
Your Honor, the defense was born ready.
The prosecution is also ready.
It's pretty epic. Oh, sorry. I was eating. There's immense tension between us. It's like we're picking up right where we left off. It's my duty. It is my duty to clear Prosecutor Blackwell of false accusations and end this insanity. But I have no intention of losing Miss Franks either. She's a very promising young lawyer. I know without a doubt that Athena is innocent. I don't think Prosecutor Blackwell did it either. So, do you have any clue who was responsible for the sabotage?
At the very least, I know it wasn't Simon Blackwell. I don't know enough to identify the true culprit, but it's clear what that person is. Was it simply a spy?
The true culprit is a spy. It's going to be hard to convince anyone of that when I barely believe it myself. I don't have a choice if I want to save Athena and Blackwell and expose the spy.
Now then, Chief Prosecutor Edgeworth.
No need for the chief prosecutor bitch, Your Honour. I am here as a simple prosecutor.
Very well, your opening statement please, Prosecutor Edgeworth. Although I've been known of late to give an expressive opening statement for myself.
In all the trials I have ever seen, only the prosecution gives an opening statement.
Of course, you're right. I was joking, just having a little fun.
So he wasn't doing them just out of fear. Interesting. Let's start with a brief overview of the UR-1 incident. The incident occurred at the Cosmos Space Center 7 years ago on October 7th. Victim, psychologist Matisse Sykes, was killed in a robotics lab on the 4th floor. Athena's mother. Simon Blackwell, a young prosecutor at the time, was found guilty of the crime. There were two deciding factors that led to his guilty verdict. One, Blackwell was the only person in the corridor to the lab at the time of the murder. And two, this photo which captured the moment of the crime.
Very incriminating evidence indeed. It would appear that the only conclusion is that Prosecutor Blackwell did indeed.
Are you kidding me? I'm not accepting any conclusion of the kind. This opening statement is over! Now, hurry up and call a witness.
Excuse me, Miss Blackwell, but we must follow proper procedure for these things, you know.
Or perhaps we should heed her wishes, Your Honour. She is the trial's sponsor after all. Besides, the courtroom is chilly and sitting for too long can't be good for your back.
Oh, you are very kind to show such concern for the welfare of the elderly.
As skilled as ever at playing the court puppeteer, I see.
The prosecution calls its first witness. A witness who's decided to bring forth new testimony after 7 long years.
New testimony? And just who is this witness anyway?
Bobby Fulbright's the name. In justice we trust.
What are you doing here?
I'm just here to speak for the hostage taker, Miss Aura Blackwell. She says she's too busy, what with confining and threatening the hostages and all.
That doesn't seem to stop her from constantly chiming in through Clonko.
I'm nothing more than an observer in this. Do your best. I'm watching you.
Believing her brother innocent, Miss Blackwell has been conducting her own investigation. And though her current actions are hardly lawful, I think we can at least hear her theory.
I have here Miss Blackwell's notes on the investigation she conducted, and I'll be giving testimony based on these notes. Here I go. Simon isn't the murderer. He was trying to cover for someone. Someone else was at the scene at the time. At the time they say Simon committed the murder. I mean, if he really was out there to steal the moon rock, then why was the rolling case? Because he was using it to hide someone inside, that's why. And the only person small enough to fit inside that case was Athena Sykes. And that's Miss Blackwell's theory. It totally goes in the face of the official ruling, huh? About the case she mentioned, there was other rolling cases like that one in the lab. But they're not for travelling, they're for apparently moving parts and equipment.
I vaguely remember seeing these cases in all different sciences. 3 cases.
At the last trial, they thought that Prosecutor Blackwell used the case to steal the rock. And he had a perfectly good reason to think that too. You see, there's a security camera in the corridor that leads to the robotics lab. And that camera captured footage of Blackwell leaving the scene with the case.
To see why the footage helped to bring his trial to a quick end. It's very convincing, that's for sure.
That case, by the way, was later discovered outside on the Space Center grounds.
Speaking of after that incident, where was the defendant Athena Sykes found?
She was found on the 5th floor of the Space Center in the Sykes family residence. Prosecutor Blackwell most likely brought her there after the incident. In addition, it's unknown whether Miss Sykes was at the estimated time What? Oh.
In addition, it's unknown where Miss Sykes was at the estimated time of death.
Miss Sykes was too confused by the shock of her mother's death to give proper testimony. And there were no witnesses or evidence to tell us where she might have been.
So what you're saying is Miss Sykes didn't have an alibi?
That is what the evidence is saying, yes. I understand the reasoning behind the theory, but I'm far from convinced. The victim is the accused mother. Are you actually claiming an 11-year-old girl?
Of course, that the girl has a very strong motive.
Dr. Sykes was a psychologist who wrote many papers about speech and emotions. You're aware of Athena Sykes' special ability, aren't you, Your Honor? Are you referring to that therapy thing? Yes, she's done it quite a few times in court. The ability to read emotions from speech, and the subject of her mother's research. Well, as long as it benefits society, I don't see a particular problem researching it.
I don't like where this is heading, not one bit.
Dr. Sykes was so intent on her research, she forced her daughter to undergo experiments. Prosecutor Edgeworth, are you seriously suggesting? I've done my best to be delicate, but even you can't deny it to be true, Mr. Wright. No longer able to withstand the anguish of these experiments. Miss Sykes felt her only option was to kill her own mother. Ah! Order in the court! What a tragic story. I hardly want to believe it myself. But we must proceed, Mr. Wright, if you could. Detective Fulbright, please refer to the notes.
Where to even begin?
Hold it!
This rolling case, I suppose you mean the one that existed in a photo with Prosecutor Blackwell in it, but was absent when the crime scene photos were taken. Yes, that's the one, and Miss Blackwell has drawn a conclusion from these two photos.
She has? And what was it? And what is that conclusion? You're the one with her notes. Oh, right. Of course. Reading them now. So, why the rolling case?
Because he was using it to hide someone inside.
Hold it!
And how do you propose he hid a person inside one of those cases?
Have you forgotten we saw just such a thing only the other day? At your own daughter's magic show? She fit a grown person into a small box.
Oh yeah! Way to ruin the memory of a good day.
A magic show? I wish you would have thought of to invite me. Actually, I would have liked to go too.
My apologies. I'll invite you both next time, I promise. So, wait a minute, what were we talking about again?
Prosecutor Blackwell's using the case to hide someone.
Hold it!
That's nothing more than conjecture, and it's hardly the only possibility.
In that case, what do you think Prosecutor Blackwell had in that case?
I think it was the moon rock.
Objection!
There were three cases at the scene, but Prosecutor Blackwell used the largest one. The moon rock was egg-shaped and only about 8 inches in diameter. It wouldn't have made any sense to use the largest case there just to move the rock.
Objection!
Be that as it may, it doesn't prove Miss Sykes was inside. Let me ask you this. Can you come up with a better theory of what was in the case?
Well, Mr. Wright, can you?
Yikes, give a guy a time to think. Let's see, should I try to bluff my way through what could have been in that case? Yeah, why not? I know exactly what Prosecutor Blackwell carried from the scene. I just have to find something else that was missing, right? No sweat.
Ooh, I'd be very interested in hearing your theory, if it's true, that is.
This is a crime scene photo taken after Prosecutor Blackwell left, correct? All you have to do is compare this with this photo of Prosecutor Blackwell to see what's missing. If he took something with him, then it should be in one of these photos. Lady Luck, don't fail me now.
All right then, Mr. Wright, let us hear what your theory. What did Prosecutor Blackwell take from the scene of the murder?
I mean, there's not many choices besides the arm of the robot. Please notice that there is a robot part on top of the cut in this photo. However, in this photo taken after the crime, the robot part is gone. In other words, this part is something that was taken from the scene of the crime.
You do appear to be right. I don't see it in the second picture.
But it's just a piece of junk. How important could it be? Is it really just an insignificant robot part? Speaking of which... What are you looking at? I'm going to start charging for each glance per eyeball. Stingy. What happened to the age of free previews? Your Honor, about this robot part, doesn't it look like it could be an arm for that robot there?
Well, now that you mention it, it does, doesn't it? But the case is still too big to be practical for just the moonrock and a robot arm.
Was it really just the one arm that was in there? If it wasn't Athena in the case, then maybe... I believe there was another robot at the scene that looks just like the one here. Your Honor, it is the defense's assertion that it was this other robot that was in the case.
What?
Objection!
Objection! We can't be certain that part belonged to a robot. Yes, it looks like the arm of the one before us, but it could be something else entirely. Besides, it's wrapped entirely in bandaging, making it difficult to verify what it is.
Objection!
I know for a fact that this is a robot's arm. I can even tell which robot it belonged to just by looking at it. With this information, we can investigate whether it was there at the time or not.
But Mr. Wright, I thought you more of a technologically illiterate type. When did you become such an expert? I feel somehow abandoned.
Not to worry, Your Honor, I still know next to nothing about machines. But I know this piece of evidence proves which robot the arm belonged to. This one.
Take that!
The robot in this picture is named Ponko. But take a look at Ponko's arm. It was Miss Sykes who bandaged this up like that.
She must have thought the machines in the same way as that people do. What an adorable, naive mistake. It reminds me of my own grandchild.
The robot arm at the scene crime, the crime scene had the same bandaging wrapped around it. In other words, this robot's arm could belong to none other than Ponko. Ponko.
Order in the court. Order, I say. Prosecutor Edgeworth, what do you have to say to this?
I concede that the robot is about the same size as a child, which it cannot grab its knees and curl itself into a ball. Even if it was the largest of the cases, the robot couldn't have possibly fit in there.
The case does come up to about mid-fire on Prosecutor Blackburn. I see your point. The robot is much taller than that.
Stop me there. So then did Prosecutor Blackwell make Ponko fit in the case by dismantling her? Of course Ponko would fit. All Prosecutor Blackwell had to do was dismantle her. Once taken apart, the robot could have easily fit inside that rolling case.
It appears to be a robot assembly device.
Disassemble anything in the flesh. Push the dismantle button. It sounds pretty neat. Can I push it, Mr. Nick?
It sounds rather violent, but Mr. Wright does have a point.
Objection!
Sorry, I was having a drink.
Except that there was a body on the table where robots are dismantled and assembled. There would have been no room to take the robot apart.
Objection!
But what if it wasn't done on the table? What if the katana was used instead?
You mean the sword?
Yes, Your Honor. Miss Blackwell, I'd like your opinion as a woman of science. Isn't it true that the katana could have been used to take the robot apart? I suppose so. Their joints aren't made of a very tough material. A blade could slice through them. Thank you for your expert opinion, Miss Blackwell. Thanks to you, we now know that the existence of the severed arm in this photo proves that Ponko was taken apart. In addition, since the rest of Ponko was not found at the scene, we can conclude that the true meaning of this photo is very different from the original interpretation.
You can't mean.
That's exactly what I mean. This photo does not capture the moment of the murder. It is instead a picture of the moment after the robot was sliced apart. The blood you see where the arm was cut off was transferred there by the bloody katana. Most likely, the rest of Ponko is scattered around Prosecutor Blackwell's feet. I'm not hearing this. Therefore, what was transported inside that case was not the defendant, but a robot. Miss Sykes was never at the scene at the time of the murder. Ah! My head! My body! Where am I? Ah!
Order in the court!
It's true that Ponko was found in pieces after the murder, and I'll admit I repaired her myself afterwards. Yes, I'm finally making some progress. Hopefully I've gotten at least one step closer to proving both Athena and Prosecutor Blackwell innocent.
Objection!
Oh. He's like, "You stupid." Well played, Mr. Wright. You've made your point abundantly clear. I can see that it wasn't the defendant inside the rolling case, but the robot. Alright, what's going on here? It's never good when he plays things this straight.
Does the prosecution withdraw its claim that the defendant was carried from the scene?
No, Your Honour. My claim hasn't changed.
Objection!
But Ponko and Miss Sykes couldn't have both been inside that
Objection!
case.
The notion that the case was used to carry Miss Sykes was Miss Blackwell's theory. I have been of a different opinion from the outset. Now I finally have the opportunity to voice my theory. Thanks to the defense. Edgeworth, he's been one step ahead of me this whole time. In that case, how do you propose the defendant left the crime scene? Simple. The footage only shows Prosecutor Blackwell from behind. What's more, he's holding his arm in front of his body, as if he was holding something, or someone. That's hardly evidence. I have proof. The surcoat Prosecutor Blackwell was wearing. The victim's blood was found on the front of it, and the stain had a highly distinctive shape. A blood stain with a distinctive shape? Please continue, Prosecutor Edgeworth. 7 years ago, the defendant was known to constantly wear a certain item, of which there is only one in the world, a special pair of headphones made just for her.
She always wore these big, heavy-looking headphones. She said her mother made them for her as part of her research.
Analysis showed the bloodstain to be in the exact same shape as these headphones. In other words, there was no mere blood spatter. The blood went from the victim's body to the headphones and then was imprinted on the Prosecutor Blackwell's coat like a stamp. A most gruesome stamp indeed. Blackwell carried Miss Sykes, who had been hit by splatter, away from the crime scene. This proves that Athena Sykes was, without question, present at the crime scene. And that concludes the prosecution's argument. Nah!
No!
Order! If the defendant was indeed at the scene, it deepens the suspicion against her.
Objection!
But we've also shown that the robot was there at the scene as well.
I hope you're not making a ridiculous claim that a simple robot was the real murderer.
I don't really think that, no, but you can't say the possibility isn't there. Detective Fulbright, was the robot questioned at the time?
No, I don't see any record of it. I believe it was considered unrelated to the case.
But as it turned out, the robot was actually integrally related. Integrally. Your Honour, the defence would like to call Ponko to the stand.
A robot witness?
I mean, there's been worse.
Order in the court. Prosecutor Edgeworth, what do you think about this? Mr. Wright has called all manner of witnesses to the stand over the years. So why not a robot? Nothing surprises me anymore with him. Very well, I will allow the witness. Bailiff, please summon the robot named Ponko. Witness, please state your name and occupation.
My name is not Witness. My name is Punker.
Yes, I realise that, but when you are at the witness stand, you are the witness.
No, I'm not. I'm Punko. Say it with me. Punko.
What an utterly inflexible little robot.
You're the last person who should be calling anybody inflexible. What's he thinking back on, I would like to know.
Ha ha! You might have known my grandchild who just learnt his own name. Oh, how precious. Alright, Ponko, I'm going to ask you some questions.
Questions? You have questions? What are your questions?
I want to know if you were there at the scene of the murder of Matisse Sykes. It was 7 years ago on the 7th of October around 2 p.m. in the robotics lab.
Certainly. Just one moment. Searching data. Search complete. Yes, I was there in the robotics lab.
It would seem this robot's testimony is necessary to this case after all.
This is great. I just knew Ponko must have seen something important.
The murder committed right before this poor little girl's eyes is inexcusable.
The judge seems ready to adopt Ponko as another grandchild.
So, little Ponko, do you think you could give us your testimony today?
I love the judge. He's so funny.
I went to the robotics lab around 2 p.m. for my regular recharge. Just as I was about to charge up, a feeder came in and hugged Mummy Matisse. And then Mummy Matisse fell down. After that, I was recharging, so I don't know anything. After I charged up, I was in the cleaning room and Mrs. Simon came in. And then the error occurred. There was no data after that point.
Well, it sounds like the defendant was without a question at the scene. However, it doesn't appear that the witness saw the actual moment of the murder.
I disagree. His testimony shows that the defendant did indeed commit the crime. What? At the end of the day, we mustn't forget that the witness is still a machine. Being a robot, its understanding and capacity to express itself are limited.
So what are you suggesting?
The witness's statements need to be interpreted. For example, the terms hugged and then later fell down. Adults don't usually fall down after being hugged by a child.
They don't, but...
Yes, what the witness's statements are telling us is
that the defendant stabbed the victim with the murder weapon during this moment. What?!
Before Miss Sykes hugged Dr. Sykes, did the two of them converse?
Yes, they did. They spoke to each other very loudly, but I don't know what they said. Fear is usually so quiet, so I was surprised.
Spoke very loudly. We can interpret this to mean they argued.
I see. Murder after a heated argument, and then the victim fell down. I agree that does sound like a reasonable interpretation. However, Ponko doesn't seem to remember anything after that.
When I am recharging, I go into sleep mode. But I remember everything before that. I have a very good memory.
You may as well admit defeat now, right? A cross-examination would be useless.
Don't be ridiculous. A cross-examination is never useless. Till now, think about it. Robots don't lie. This robot is both an important witness and valuable evidence at the same time. Nevertheless, I will have my cross-examination. I see you haven't changed. You never were the one to worry about wasting time.
Very well, even if it may be a waste of time, you may proceed, Mr. Wright.
I'll show you both just how fruitful any cross-examination can be.
Hold it!
Hugged her, which Edworth took to mean stabbed her with a weapon. You said the two of them were talking before Miss Sykes hugged her mother, is that right?
Yes, they were talking very loudly, but I couldn't tell what they were saying.
Couldn't tell? Even though they were speaking so loudly?
I'm only allowed to listen to voices that are directed at me.
If it listened to every voice, it would be a little better than a mobile eavesdropper. Well, that explains why some of Ponko's testimony is so vague. It's a shame that our little friend wasn't listening in, however. We could have learned what they were talking about just before Dr. Sykes was killed. Now then, what happened after that?
Hold it!
I don't want to delve too deeply here, but could you tell us about how the victim appeared and acted at this moment?
Mummy Matisse was very surprised when she was hugged. I heard her heart pound.
Her heart? Mr. Wright, have you forgotten about this document we found in the robotics lab? These robots have heartbeat detection system. Now that he mentions it, I do remember reading something like that there. They detect the presence of people by the sounds of their heartbeats. But wait a minute, that means if Dr. Sykes really did die at this moment... Ponko, how was Dr. Sykes after she fell down? Could you still hear the sound of her heartbeat?
Let's see, the moment she fell, her heart was pounding. After that, I don't know, I started recharging just then.
Of all the unlucky timing, if you had heard anything after that, it could have possibly proved that the hug wasn't actually the moment of the murder.
I'm very sorry, I'm afraid I don't know. I'm very, very sorry.
The robot is designed to go into sleep mode automatically, so it can't be helped. But it does appear it detected an increased heart rate at the moment of the stabbing. Ugh.
After Mummy Matisse's heart started pounding in surprise, she fell by the window. It was the round window on the workbench side of the room.
The workbench, huh? Okay, must be talking about the table to the right of where that giant robot is now. Is there something critical in Ponko's statement just now? There is. Your Honour, I believe that statement is critical. I'd like it added to her testimony.
Very well. Ponko, could you please add that statement to your testimony? That's a good little girl.
Mummy Matisse fell down near the round window on the workbench side of the room.
Objection!
Ponko, your statement may have just inspired a breakthrough.
It was helpful. Hooray! I'm so happy.
Just to be sure, let's go over it again, okay? The victim fell near the window on the workbench side of the room. However, her body was discovered on the operating table.
But the operating table and the workbench are two different locations.
Exactly, Your Honour. We've just learned a new crucial fact. What could explain the two very different locations of the body? I'll tell you what. The victim moved. An 11-year-old girl couldn't have moved the heavy body of an adult, so the only explanation is that the victim walked to the operating table herself. In other words, what Ponko observed near the workbench couldn't possibly have been the moment of the murder.
Phew, I'm very relieved to hear that. Glad to know that the murder wasn't committed in front of little Ponko here.
Yes, as we just heard in the testimony, Miss Sykes hugged her mother, nothing more.
Objection!
Right.
It's been 8 years, but you're still just as green as ever.
Green? But I can't recall ever seeing Mr. Wright in anything but a blue suit.
Hey, blue's my favourite colour. What can I say?
If the defendant couldn't have moved the body herself, she could have moved it for her.
Had it moved for her. Moved for her, but Miss Sykes and Dr. Sykes were the only ones there. I agree. Since this robot is equipped with a heartbeat detection system, it would have been aware of another person's presence, if someone else had been there. We can therefore conclude that the defendant and the victim were the only ones present.
Then who do you suggest moved the body?
Don't you know it's in the nature of robots to help people do things? Miss Penko, allow me to ask you a question.
My name's Ponko. Stick with me, Ponko.
I believe you said you were cleaning after Dr. Sykes fell down. Did you happen to move something large onto the operating table?
Yes, I did. Athena asked me to.
Athena asked you to?
And what did you move, little Ponko?
I don't know. Unless something has an ID tag, I can't tell what it is.
An ID tag, you say?
Yes, a tag with a barcode on it. We robots scan them to tell us what a thing is.
That paper in the lab did mention something about that. Recognizes people by scanning their spacesuit or uniform jacket ID tag, it said. So it would appear that Miss Panko here can't identify when it moved.
My name is Ponko!
But we humans have the power to imagine what it was, do we not?
We do?
Well, I do, at the very least. Miss Panko, on the defendant's command, you moved the body onto the operating table.
Yeah!
Honko, did you really move Dr. Sykes' body? This is really important. Isn't there any way you could tell?
I don't know. Without an ID tag, I can't tell.
Give it up, Wright. If the victim's heart was stopped, the robot detection system would be useless. Furthermore, Dr. Sykes usually wore her white coat while she was working. She kept her jacket with her ID tag on it, dripped over a chair in the robotics lab, and only wore it for special occasions. In other words, the victim wasn't wearing her ID tag at the time. From the robot's point of view, her body was simply just another object.
Objection!
Ponko is equipped with facial recognition system. If she really did move the victim, she would have recognized the body was Dr. Sykes. But she didn't, so that means
Objection!
the face can easily be covered with a piece of cloth, a mask, or anything else for that matter. With her facial features hidden, the robot wouldn't be able to tell it was Dr. Sykes. Ugh, he's right. To summarize, Miss Sykes stabbed her mother near the workbench, and then, using the robot, she moved the body to the table where she removed the sword and was stained in blood.
Order! But if that's the case, I have a question. Why did the defendant move the body to the operating table in the first place?
You want a reason? Very well. What? You can't possibly have an explanation. Your emotions blind you to the truth. You can learn a lot from our robot friends. Calm and rational thought will open your eyes to the truth in front of you, Mr. Wright. Now then, do you remember the operation table's one special feature?
I believe I read that robots can be assembled and disassembled there, isn't that right?
That's right. And to the defendant, who was just a child at the time, the table was like a magic box that could make robots appear on or disappear in seconds.
But in the end, my mom just put her on the operating table and fixed her in a flash. I was so impressed by what my mom did. I even asked her if she would put me on the table and fix me if I ever got hurt. It looked just like magic to me what she could do.
You can't possibly be suggesting this young sheltered girl had a difficult time distinguishing robots from people. But take a look at Ponko's arm. It was Miss Sykes who bandaged it up like that.
She must have thought that it was an adorable naive mistake. It reminds me of my own grandchild.
No way. I refuse to believe it. Miss Sykes made a childish, naive and cruel mistake. She thought that if a robot could be dismantled and vanish without a trace...
Prosecutor Edgeworth, if you're about to claim what I think you are, I demand that you word it as delicately as you can.
With all due respect, Your Honour, all I can do is present the truth as it stands. The reason the defendant moved the victim's body to the operating table... No! Don't say another word, just stop!
Was to dismantle the evidence so that she could get away with her crime.
That can't be...
True!
He's saying it for longer, but my voice is already dying.
Order! Order in the court, I say!
Edgeworth, she was just a little kid. How can you say such a horrible thing?
Horrible? Like I said, you're just as green as ever.
I came here today as a prosecutor to seek only the truth, no more, no less. My theory is simply the result of a rational consideration of every possibility.
Objection!
But dismantling isn't the table's only function, it can make repairs as well. It's conceivable that Miss Sykes moved her mother to the table in order to fix her. I suppose it could be another way of interpreting it. But dismantle or repair, it doesn't matter either way. What do you mean? After murdering her mother, Miss Sykes may have come to her senses. Perhaps she did want to make it appear as if it had never happened. And that's why she tried to repair her mother. Yes, that's one possible explanation. But we mustn't forget the facts of the case. The victim was observed to fall down after being hugged by the defendant, and the body was moved per the defendant's command. These two facts that indicate the defendant's guilt, remain unchanged. This just can't be true.
Mr. Wright, do you have any evidence to refute the prosecution's claim?
Evidence? Right, let's see. I can't think of any. I'm afraid I don't have any evidence.
Since becoming chief prosecutor, I've learned that the truth isn't always pretty. Now accept the truth, Mr. Wright. Your subordinate murdered her own mother. Your Honor, the prosecution demands a verdict. The hostages have suffered enough. It's a terrible and tragic conclusion. If the defense has no counter-argument, I see no need to further prolong this trial.
Petrof's argument seems solid enough, but there's no way Athena could have ever done anything like that. What do I do? There has to be something, but I can't think of a single thing.
Prosecutor Blackwell.
This is quite the farce you're conducting here. I could die from laughter.
Prosecutor Blackwell, what are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that your argument is based on an entirely false premise.
Go on, we're listening.
Could this be the miracle I need? What is Prosecutor Blackwell trying to pull here? 7 years. For 7 long years. This case has been on my mind. Not for an instant did I not think of it. I'm the one who killed my mentor, and don't think you can alter that fact now.
Your boldness I will take to the stand, and I won't take no for an answer. Of course, Prosecutor Blackwell, please go ahead. I went to the Cosmos Space Center with the intention of killing Dr. Sykes. But when I got to the robotics lab, I found Athena there instead. I would not be swayed from my purpose, so I waited for Dr. Sykes to return. And then I committed the act. Ah, how cathartic it was. But little Ponko here witnessed the victim falling. In other words...
Objection!
I don't need any of your other words, old man. I can guess what happened.
Which would be...
She fell means she fell. Merely that. A mother and child fooling around. Perhaps she tripped. Not that it matters. When I entered the lab, there was no trace of Dr. Sykes to be seen. There was no dead body either. Of course, meaning she must have left the room.
So the murder occurred after the time period Ponko described in her testimony.
You should hardly take stock on the words of a wind-up boy.
Objection!
Then how do you explain the fact that the defendant had the robot move something?
Athena was always tinkering with robots on the operating table to amuse herself. And she always had Ponko move the heavy ones for her. That day was no different.
Ponko moved a heavy robot for Athena.
This is awful. What he's saying seems to make sense, and yet...
Prosecutor Blackwell, are you trying, even now, to turn away from the truth? Don't you realise we could bring the dark age of the law to a close today?
You expect too much from me. I'm just a murderer beyond redemption. Why don't you just let me go so I can settle down in hell? Ugh. Prosecutor Blackwell's execution is tomorrow. If the truth doesn't come out now, it's all over.
Are you saying that the little girl and the robot had nothing to do with the murder?
That's right. So let's hear your verdict. If we don't hurry, I might miss the ferry across the Styx. Don't you dare, Judge! Don't forget I have hostages over here! And Simon, how long are you going to cover for her? Miss Blackwell. Forgive me, Aura. I never wanted you to do anything like this for me. But you agreed to this trial. If you have a counter-argument, then present your evidence. That's the rule of the courtroom. Isn't that right, Chief Prosecutor?
Blackwell, you selfish... Well, to be frank, I don't like this, but it's my duty to make a decision. If no one has a counter-argument, I will announce my verdict.
Is this really happening? Is it really going to end just like it did 7 years ago? I wanted to do it so bad. Even now, I want to fly out of here and go save him. No, I can't tell her, but how can I lie to Athena? If I can't prove Prosecutor Blackwell's innocence in this trial, I don't think Athena will ever forgive me. Athena? I can't let this happen, but I just don't have the evidence to counter Prosecutor Blackwell's testimony. Athena! Are you feeling okay?
I can hear it. I can hear the voice of his heart. He's hiding something.
If he really is, I could sure use Athena's help here. Her power might be just the thing to get us through this.
Objection!
Sextono. No need for you to chime in here. Just accept that you're innocent.
Objection!
These past 7 years, they've been just as hard on me, you know.
What are you talking about?
Do you remember that horrible trial? Please, you have to listen to me. He didn't kill her. His heart is screaming that he didn't kill her. Even now, every time I stand in the courtroom, it comes back to haunt me. I'm not being heard, no matter how hard you try. Feeling so helpless. Caught in people's stares. So scared that it feels like your chest is in a vice. I'm terrified of courtrooms. I want to run out of the door even now.
And yet you found a way to keep your fears at bay and became a lawyer.
Thanks. That's because one day I came to realize that I had to fight. I couldn't give up. I exercised hard and I studied hard. I wanted to become the strongest lawyer I could be. I'm looking forward to it with all my heart. This is why I became a lawyer. This is why I studied psychology. It was all to save you from this false conviction.
But Miss Sykes, do you realise what it would mean? You are the accused, after all. If you prove Prosecutor Blackwell innocent, then...
The only thing that matters is the truth. It's my duty to find out what it is. Simon, please give me this chance. The chance to shake off this fear that's been with me for 7 years and face the truth.
Athena's being so brave confronting her past like this. This might really be the last chance to save them both. Prosecutor Blackwell, please testify one more time about the incident 7 years ago.
Fine, but your efforts will surely be in vain. For I am not a man who can be cut down easily.
Here we go, Simon. Let me hear the voice of your heart. Let me hear the voice of your heart.
Why is my voice so sore today?
I went to the Cosmos State Center with the intention of killing Dr. Sykes. But when I got to the robotics lab, I found Athena there instead. I would not be swayed from my purpose, so I waited for Dr. Sykes to return. And then I committed the act. How cathartic it was.
His emotions are very guarded, and his defenses are way up. He's stilled his will as if he'll never let his secrets be known.
Oh, I don't know about that. We've got a couple of strong wills on our side too. Prosecutor Blackwell isn't the killer, and we're going to prove it.
But what was he trying to do that day? If we approach it from that angle, I bet we can find an emotion that doesn't add up.
Got it!
This feeling of happiness. Even though the person you were looking for wasn't there, you felt happy. Why is that?
Simple. When I was looking for Athena and hadn't found her yet, I grew worried. So when I saw her in the robotics lab, I was happily relieved. Merely that.
Just now you said that you went to the space center to kill Dr. Sykes. But the first thing you did was look for her daughter instead.
I had no intention of harming Athena, so I wanted to confirm that she was safe first. It was just a part of my plan. Nothing contradictory about that. Ugh.
The second I find an inconsistency, he cuts it down.
Simon knows the principles of analytical psychology. There's less noise now, but I don't see any instabilities that we can latch onto.
I was afraid of that. We just have to keep chipping away at him then, by bit. Could you update his testimony, Athena?
You got it, boss.
Not even you can falsify your emotions, Prosecutor Blackpool. What? When you said that you killed Dr. Sykes in your testimony, you felt sadness. Why would someone who had lain in... What the fuck? Why would someone who had lain in wait to kill her be sad at her death? Such an obvious attack. Yes, I felt sadness, but it wasn't for her. I felt sorry for Athena and her circumstances. Ugh, he can't be talking about that, can he?
I was just a convenient subject for her research.
Dr. Sykes was so intent on her research, she forced her daughter to undergo experiments. My objective was to save Athena from an obsessive scientist who treated her own daughter like a research subject. What? I went to the psychology lab first. That's where I would usually find Athena playing. But that day was different. I heard someone crying in the robotics lab next door. Was Athena being subjected to yet another experiment? I thought as I went to see. Conveniently, Athena had cried herself to sleep, so all I had to do was wait and kill. So that's why he was relieved when he saw Athena. But is this story really true? I'm not sure how much to believe.
Mr. Wright?
How are you doing, Athena? Still hanging in there?
I'm a lot stronger than I look, boss. Now, take a look at this. The noise level actually increased.
It went up? I've never seen it do that before.
Prosecutor Blackwell's lying somewhere in his testimony. As a matter of fact, he's piling lie on top of lie in an attempt to make his claim sound more believable. He's trying even harder to suppress his true feelings, and that's what's causing the noise.
How in the world should I approach this? An evidence-based approach might not work if I can find a contradiction, otherwise I should look for an inconsistency in his emotions. There are no flaws in my testimony, and his boldness is prepared to give his verdict. Give up on this lost cause. Oh, now I've got hiccups. And let the law free me of these chains already.
Objection!
I don't think so, not while I'm around. Now, contradictory testimony or inconsistent emotions. What should I tackle first? The emotions. Okay, let's look for inconsistent emotions.
Got it, boss. But if you want to try looking for a contradictory statement instead, just let me know. I can easily switch over.
Is it really an inconsistency in his emotions, though? We can take a break and go looking for a contradictory testimony. Try the testimony. Okay, let's compare the testimony with the evidence one more time. Maybe it is the emotions. Why is it so close? Okay. How odd. Why would you register surprise? Why can't I speak? Why would you register surprise at opening the door to the lab? Alright, fine, I'll explain if I must. What surprised me was Ponko. That toy figure attacked me. Dr. Sykes knew full well of my plan to rescue Athena. She couldn't stand guard over her daughter 24 hours a day. So Dr. Sykes had Ponko do it? That's right. She ordered Ponko to forcibly remove me on sight. So I slashed Ponko up with the katana that was there in the lab. That rickety old puppet wasn't worthy of that fine blade.
Mr. Wright, it's happening again. There's even more noise now.
Oh, it's 100% now. What's going on here?
Whenever we find an opening, he covers it up with lies. But we'll never get rid of noise at this rate.
It's pretty hard to keep telling coherent lies like that. His mind and will really are as sharp as strong as a katana. Alright, what should I tackle first this time? Testimony. I think there might be an inconsistency in Prosecutor Blackwell's testimony.
Let's give it a check then.
With a feeling of dread, I opened a robotics law just then. Ponko attacked me. I retaliated by cutting it into pieces. But before I could lead Athena out of there, Dr. Sykes came in.
Objection!
Compounding lies with more lies is never the answer, Prosecutor Blackwell. Take a look at this photo.
That's the photo of the supposed moment of the murder, isn't it?
How many more times must I see that which damn me for my sin? The ironic thing is, I think this picture is actually going to be your saviour now. See the bloodstain at the end of Ponko's arm where it was severed with the katana?
I hope you aren't claiming it's the robot's blood, Mr. Wright.
No, most likely the blood was transferred there from the bloody katana.
The katana already had blood on it, so then it must have been the victim's blood.
That's right, but if that's the case, we found a glaring inconsistency.
Ugh.
You said in your testimony that you cut up Ponko and then you killed Dr. Sykes. But in spite of that, the victim's blood is already on Ponko's arm in this picture.
What? But that couldn't be.
Exactly. In order for the blood to have transferred from the sword to Ponko's arm, the victim must have already been stabbed first, before the robot was slashed. In other words, Prosecutor Blackwell, your entire testimony is nothing but a giant ball of lies.
Yeah!
Tell the court the truth, Prosecutor Blackwell, now!
You have no idea what you're doing.
His voice. There's so much discord. I'm hearing not just one or two, but a bunch of rampaging emotions here. It's hard to describe. It's like a violent whirlpool or something.
Phoenix Wright, you will pay for this. Never have I been forced to reveal so much, but the rest I'll take to my grave.
Prosecutor Blackwell, you're on the witness stand. You are obligated to tell the truth. Isn't that the rule of the courtroom?
All of these complex emotions, they seem to be flowing from one source. I think whatever he really saw that day is what's causing his feelings.
What terrible scene.
Got it!
When you opened the door and saw Athena, you became overwhelmed by your emotions. Isn't that right, Prosecutor?
You should know better. And though it's pathetic, I admit I'm terrified to speak of it.
Prosecutor Blackwell, Miss Sykes is innocent, and I'll always believe that with all my heart. Now, can't you find it within yourself to believe in me too?
Athena is innocent, huh? Can you honestly say you believe that to be true, right, Dono?
I give you my word. Now tell me what you really saw when you opened the door.
Curse you, Phoenix Wright! It was a tragedy, one I'll never forget. When I arrived at the lab, Dr. Sykes was already dead. She was lying on the operating table, while the bloody katana lay on the floor. Standing between the two, covered in blood, was Athena. She smiled, with a far-off look in her eyes, as she sweetly said, "Something's wrong with Mom, so I'm taking her apart to fix her." That's what I saw, and now you have it.
The truth that you so desperately wanted. No. Prosecutor Blackwell finally tells the truth, and this is what it is? It's beyond devastating. I tried to take my mother apart. I, I... No! So it was me. I'm the one who killed my mother. Athena! As I said, right. The truth isn't always pretty. Murder, disassembly on the operating table, a scientist using her daughter as a guinea pig. Sadly, it appears that my theory was correct after all.
Objection!
It's true that Athena didn't like her mother's research, but you dare cast aspersions on my mentor by claiming Athena was used in such a manner? Dr. Sykes could be awkward with people. But she loved her daughter with all her heart. She loved me? Your mother hated to see you suffer because you could hear the voices of people's hearts. She wanted to set you free of your pain, so she worked tirelessly on her research. Do you remember those headphones you hated so much? Yes, my head hurt every time I wore them. No, Athena, it's just the opposite. They emitted sound waves to nullify emotional input from the voices of people around you. Your power was much stronger then than it is now. And those headphones were what enabled you to carry on with everyday life. No, that can't be true. Then why? Why would I have done something like that to somebody who loved me so much? Her love for you was real. That I can guarantee. That's why I knew. That's what happened had to be some kind of mistake. I couldn't let you be punished for it. So you took the blame yourself. You and your mentor are more alike than you know. Ponko was a witness, so I put it in the case, held Athena close, and vacated the lab. I threw Ponko away in the boarding lounge trash chute, and I hid the case on the Space Center grounds. It was seen that we now have all of the facts of this case. No, not yet. It can't end like this. Do not disgrace yourself, Mr. Wright. The truth has been revealed. Or are you the type of man to turn your back on to things that disagree with you? I'm not, but this... I can't give up now. I have to say something, even if it's a bluff. I've always managed to pull through that way in the past. I have to make it work. The defense is prepared to present evidence. Mr. Wright. Yes, Athena? It's okay. You can stop now. I don't want you or anyone else to suffer any longer for my sake. Athena, what are you saying? I killed my mother. That's the truth. It's just like Prosecutor Edgeworth said. We have to face it no matter how much it hurts. I admit my guilt. But could I please be granted just one chance to tell everyone what I recall? It appears Miss Sykes is much braver than you, Mr. Wright. What say you, Your Honour? In light of her courage, will the court give Miss Sykes this opportunity to confess? Very well. Then if you would, please take the stand, Miss Sykes. Thank you for letting me do this, Prosecutor Edgeworth. And thank you, Mr. Wright and Prosecutor Blackwell, for letting the truth be known. Now we can finally move forward.
and everyone's suffering can come to an end.
Athena, Prosecutor Blackwell will be cleared and the dark age of the law can come to an end. Yes, admit your guilt and bring everything to its conclusion.
I killed my mother. My memory's still a little hazy, but there's no question I remember it. I remember the weight of the weapon in my hands, and the feeling of it stabbing in deep. And I remember the warmth of her blood as it flowed down the handle onto my fingers. Your Honor, please find me guilty.
I dare say, these are all memories that no one but the murderer would have. I see. Thank you for your confession. I believe this trial's gone on long enough. But before we conclude, does anyone have a counter-argument?
Objection!
I do, Your Honor. Mr. Wright!
But, Mr. Wright, why? I killed her, I remember it now. Any counter-argument now is pointless.
Objection!
Don't tell me you've forgotten one of the basic tenets of lawyering. Always believe in the client to the bitter end. Athena, you are not a murderer.
Objection!
I said that you'd never change, but could you have actually regressed in these 8 years? I won't stand for your childish emotionalism getting in the way of the truth. Emotionalism don't lecture me on matters of the heart, Edgeworth. Because I can see straight into a person's soul.
I did a little research. I looked into the special psyche locks you mentioned, Mr. Nick. Athena isn't trying to keep anything from you on purpose. For some reason, part of her heart and her memories are sealed off, even from herself.
There's still a chance, somewhere deep in Athena's heart. There might still be memory that not even she knows about yet. It might be like looking for a grain of sand somewhere in the cosmos, but still, that memory might contain a new fact that could prove her innocence. I hope for everyone's sake that you are not just bluffing, Mr. Wright. Now then, is there or is there not a problem with Miss Sykes' confession?
My memory still never hate.
Why do I have to recall every little thing? We just read this, come on. There's definitely something wrong with her memory of the event, I can just tell. If there's a problem with her confession, please prove it to the court now.
Take that!
Isn't that the katana the defendant used to kill the victim, Mr. Wright? I respectfully and vehemently disagree, Your Honor.
But I remember it! I remember holding the weapon and getting blood on my fingers.
That's exactly my point. If blood really did get on your fingers while you were holding it, then there should be some blood on the handle. But please focus on the handle of this sword. There's not a trace of blood on it. And therefore, this is clearly a contradiction of the facts.
You're right.
Oh my! They can't just take this confession, as fact straight away. The defendant must simply confuse the portion of her memories. She mentioned it was hazy to begin with, and we can't mull over every minor detail.
Objection!
But she also said there's no question I remember it, a fact we can't ignore. In that case, why don't you explain what this contradiction in her memories means? Gladly, just give me a second to think of something. I want to say that Athena didn't stab anyone, but she said it herself that she remembers the feeling of committing the act. Think, Phoenix, think! What could the contradiction with Athena's memories mean? Miss Sykes said blood flowed down the handle, but the katana's handle is spotless. So, doesn't it follow that the defendant must have used a weapon other than the katana? What are you up to this time? This is it. This time I found just the thing to end Athena's nightmare for good. The weapon that took Dr. Sykes' life was the katana, that much is for sure. So if I can show a possibility that Athena didn't use the katana, it could help prove her innocent. A different weapon, you say? What weapon would that be exactly? Right, of course he would ask that. I can see you're floundering, Mr. Wright. Did you speak without thinking again as always? How does he do that? But I can't back down. Not here, not now. That's right, I did. Because it's so obvious it doesn't require any thought. What did you say? Okay, so maybe that was an exaggeration, but it has to be something. Was there some other bladed weapon in the robotics lab that day? Maybe there's something in one of the crime scene photos. Wait a minute, there is something! There is a high probability that that was in the lab. I don't have that particular weapon in evidence right now, but I do have a piece of evidence just like it. Other than the katana, this is another blade that may have been at the crime scene. This?
Take that!
That's the murder weapon in the Clay Terran case.
Yes, this is the knife that took Mr. Terran's life. But there must have been a knife just like this at the scene 7 years ago as well. Toolkits containing utility knives like this, one are issued to Space Center employees. And a robotics lab would naturally have one of these around.
But besides the katana, no other bladed weapons was found at the site. It was in the investigation report, if you didn't know.
Objection!
Of course I knew that. Once you told me just now.
Then here's something else you already knew.
There was a toolkit at the scene.
It didn't contain any blades. Here is a photo of its contents. You're right, I don't see any kind of bladed tool.
Fine, but isn't there something odd about the design on these handles?
Therefore, there was no other bladed weapon in the room.
Objection!
I disagree, this toolkit contained a knife.
Then what proof do you have of that?
Don't tell me your eye for art is failing you too, Mr. Edgeworth.
You are the last person in the world who should be criticizing my aesthetic sense. Now, he was simply watching out for your ocular health. Please proceed, Mr. Wright.
Notice that the handles of each of these tools have a sort of design on them.
Ah, I see that they do, but what significance does it have?
It's clear that one of these tools is missing from this kit. If we rearrange the tools in a specific pattern, we might be able to tell which part of the overall design is missing. Is that the theory your pitiful sense of aesthetics helped you come up with? Edgeworth, just let it go, man.
Show the court then, if you would. What pattern or design would we see if we rearranged our tools?
Take that!
And what design is this supposed to represent?
The Gaiaxa logo, Your Honor, it's on all of the Space Center documents and pamphlets. As you're aware, Gaiaxa is the program that operates the Cosmos Space Center. Look at how brightly the Gaiaxa logo shines in the sunlight above the entranceway. I really dig the stars and rocket motif it's got going. Gaiaxa, huh? Isn't that the new name of the Federal Space R&D program?
Oh, I think I see it now, but...
Yes, with just the tools shown in this photo. The red A part of the logo is missing. And this is where the murder weapon from the Terran case comes into play. If we were to place the utility knife in the open slot, it would complete the Gaiaxa logo.
So it would, then that means...
Admit it, Mr. Edgeworth. My aesthetic sense is keener than yours. And while you're at it, admit that the weapon Miss Sykes used could have been this one.
No! Order in the court!
Miss Sykes confessed to having a memory of stabbing the victim. Admittedly, Miss Sykes most likely did stab someone using a utility knife. However, the weapon used to kill Dr. Sykes was the katana. Therefore, the act of stabbing that Miss Sykes remembers couldn't be that of Dr. Sykes. Very well. Let's suppose for a minute that Miss Sykes did use the utility knife. Tell me, how does that change anything? Come again? What if the katana was only being used as a decoy to conceal the true murder weapon? What if the real weapon that took the victim's life was a utility knife? Don't be ridiculous. Are you changing the premise of your entire argument? I'm merely offering a hypothetical situation derived from your logic. Miss Sykes could have put blood on the katana to make it look like the murder weapon. and then concealed the knife on her personage until Blackwell carried her away.
That does clear up the contradiction between Miss Sykes' memories and the evidence.
If, in fact, the murder weapon is a utility knife, then fate has dealt you a cruel hand. For you've just proven the knife's existence to the rest of us with your own logic.
Objection!
The prosecution is attempting to lead the court.
Objection!
You're the one attempting to lead the court, Mr. Wright, by forcing us to forget the facts of this case. Need I remind you that there was only 2 people in the lab at the time of the murder, and that the defendant herself recalls stabbing someone with her own hands? No. It matters not whether the murder weapon was a katana or a utility knife. As long as we know that the victim and the defendant were the only ones there. We cannot escape the fact that it was Athena Sykes who killed her own mother. I don't believe it. Why? Why does this keep happening? Every time I can find a contradiction, it vanishes and the suspicion keeps coming back. It's almost as if... Now you're finally starting to get it. Your contradictions keep vanishing because the charge is true, and the suspicion keeps coming back to the defendant because that's where it belongs. Phoenix Wright, when will you open your eyes and accept the truth? He screams longer, but I'm not screaming for that long. I'm sorry, guys. My throat hurts. I don't want to believe it. It can't be true. No. But what if...
Mr. Wright, you fought a good fight. I think you've done all you can do.
Is giving up really the only option? No. Snap out of it, Phoenix. What's the matter with you giving into doubt? I can't look back. Forward is the only way to go. No, Your Honor, not yet. It isn't over yet.
Right.
I can't lose sight of what's important. I believe in Athena, and I'll always believe in her to the very end. The defense lawyer never gives up on his client. I have to pick myself up and stand firm. Make that brain of yours work, Phoenix. If I don't see a way, I'll just have to go back and look for one. Time to rethink this case thoroughly. I concede the fact that Athena must have stabbed someone with the utility knife. This must have been what Ponko witnessed as Athena's hug. But Prosecutor Blackwell didn't see the knife at the scene. This means that someone must have removed it from the lab before he arrived. Who could have taken the utility knife from the lab? If I trust in Athena, then I have to conclude there was a third person at the scene. But according to Ponko's testimony, Athena and her mother were the only 2 there. So then, how did this third person manage to escape Ponko's detection? I know, this person must have fooled Ponko's facial recognition feature by covering their own face. But wait a minute, Ponko has a heartbeat detection system too. Even if they covered their own face, Ponko would have still detected their presence. But she wouldn't have been able to tell who they were. Wait, that's it. The culprit could have covered their face and posed as which person to avoid detection. If the culprit poses the victim, that would explain why Ponko thought only she and Athena were there. All they have to do was take advantage of Ponko's basic recognition features. The culprit used this in order to pose as the victim. The culprit could have posed as the victim by wearing her jacket with the ID tag on it. But that still leaves the heartbeat detection system. How did the culprit get around that? It wouldn't have worked if Ponko could detect the real Dr. Sykes' heartbeat too. So does that mean the real Dr. Sykes was already dead by that time? If that's the case, then who did Athena stab? That's it! The person Athena stabbed wasn't Dr. Sykes. It was the person who murdered her and then pretended to be her. The real culprit! Now that Mr. Wright has finally finished thinking, let us bring this to a swift end. Please give us your verdict, Your Honor, so that we can move on to the hostage negotiations.
You're absolutely right, Prosecutor Edgeworth. I hereby...
Objection!
I didn't say I was finished, I was pausing for a second. because I realised something so shocking I had to take a breath to digest it. But now I know for a fact that Miss Sykes is innocent.
But Ponko saw me. She witnessed the moment of the crime.
Yes, Ponko did witness something. She saw the hug. In other words, the moment you used the utility knife. The person you stabbed wasn't your mother.
What are you saying, Mr. Wright?
The answer is simple. The person Miss Sykes stabbed was a third person posing as Dr. Sykes.
What?
Objection!
You really expect us to swallow that, Mr. Wright? According to her rebel statements, there was no third person there. Did you really think I wouldn't see through your ludicrous grab for time?
Objection!
After all we've been through, Mr. Edgeworth, I'm disappointed. Don't you know by now this smile of mine means I have absolute confidence?
Ha! You make that pose all the time, regardless of the facts.
Conco's strange malfunction.
Mr. Tyrion, you're pale. Shall I help you in the sick bay?
Mr. Terran, but that's Apollo you're talking to. Oh, this hunk of junk here is mistaking Apollo for Clay. Maybe Apollo's possessed by Clay's ghost. There was another case of mistaken identity caused by jacket ID tag. All because Conco couldn't read Apollo's facial features due to that eye patch. Like Mr. Edgeworth said, a mask could nullify the robot's facial recognition, and then all the person would have to do is wear a jacket with the victim's ID tag to pose as her.
Objection!
All the ridiculous theories. What good would a silly disguise like that do? Have you forgotten that the robot also has a heartbeat detection system? If there was a third person at the scene, the robot would have detected him.
I'm sorry, Mr. Edgeworth, but that doesn't count for much, I'm afraid. Because by that time, Dr. Sykes' heart had already stopped beating.
What? So does that mean?
Yes, Your Honour. The person Miss Sykes stabbed. And this first person who was posing as Dr. Sykes is her mother's real killer.
That's... impossible!
Impossible! I fucked up that line so badly.
A mask? The person who stabbed was wearing a mask?
Order in the court! Miss Sykes, you say something?
A mask? Yes, I remember.
Athena? What is it?
I remember a man with a mask. How could he? What did he do to my mother? My head.
Miss Sykes, are you alright?
No!
The black psyche locks. They're breaking!
It's all coming back to me. Everything that happened the day my mother was murdered.
They're gone. The black psyche locks are finally gone. You didn't really stab your mother, did you? It's alright, Athena. Just tell us what you really saw that day.
I was drawing a picture. When I was done, I went to show it to my mom. I opened the door, and then...
It's alright. I'm right here. You're safe, Athena.
She was on the floor by the workbench, with the katana sticking out of her. There was a handkerchief over her face, but I knew it was her by her clothes. And there was a man there.
A man?
Hold it!
Quiet, Your Honor. Go on, Athena.
He tried to attack me. In a panic, I grabbed the knife that was there and he dodged at first, so I only got his clothes. But I tried again.
And this time you got him, didn't you?
I did. I remember it clearly now. The knife went into the back of his hand. Then he kicked me and I passed out. When I came to, my mom wasn't moving. I had to do something. I had to fix her, I thought. So I asked Ponko to move her to the operating table. Something's wrong with Mom, so I'm taking her apart to fix her.
So that's why she said that. Your Honor, as you can see, the defendant has just given us critical new testimony. A man was there before Miss Sykes arrived, a man who covered the victim's face and put on the victim's jacket. This man is the real culprit.
Miss Sykes, do you have any idea who this man was?
No, I'm afraid I don't.
A few moments ago, Miss Sykes mentioned a mask. Athena, can you tell us anything else about that?
Yes, the mask. It was my mum's Japanese theatre mask. I think it's the one hanging on the wall of the lab.
Ah, this mask hanging here on the wall.
It was kind of spooky, that mask. My mum used to tell me that a mask even has the power to turn an ordinary human into a phantom.
A phantom?
It would seem that a new suspect has emerged, and that means that all suspicion against Miss Sykes has...
You see, this is precisely why I can't trust this court system.
Athena Sykes is the murderer. I won't accept any other verdict. Miss Blackwell, this is not good.
A new suspect? Where's the proof this third person even existed? Who says it wasn't all just a dream in this little princess's groggy little head?
Ugh, she's right. We don't have any hard evidence of the masked man's existence.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. I'll never be able to repay you for what you've done. But I'm fine now, because I can say with certainty that I didn't kill my mother.
Athena, I'm so glad for you.
More and more memories are coming back now. So I'd like to say one thing if I could. Pongo came to the robotics lab about 2 p.m. to recharge. I went to the robotics lab about 2 p.m. for my regular recharge. Just as I was about to charge up, Athena came in and hugged Mummy Matisse. And then Mummy Matisse fell down. After that, I was recharging, so I don't know anything.
I see where you're going with this. If Mummy Matisse was really the killer in disguise...
Right, then he must have come to the robotics lab before 2 p.m.
Do I have anything here in the evidence that can help me find the person who came to the lab before 2 p.m?
Take that!
This is Prosecutor Blackwell leaving the scene after the incident around 3 p.m. What I'm wondering is, does the video show anyone else passing by before then? I don't see anything in the investigation report. It looks like they didn't check. Just as I thought. So if we rewind the footage and go back to around 2 p.m, we should be able to see the true culprit leaving the scene.
Very well then, let's take a look.
There! Please stop it right there!
It's just like you said, there is a man leaving the scene of the crime.
Miss Sykes, do you remember this person?
That's him! I'm sure of it! He's wearing my mother's jacket! I did. What I really wanted to see was her jacket.
That jacket on display, that was Dr. Sykes?
Can you see it? There's a slash I made with the utility knife that day. And I'm sure that knife is under that jacket somewhere.
So then, everything Miss Sykes said...
Exactly, it proves that Miss Sykes' memory was correct. Dr. Sykes' killer arrived at the robotics lab before 2 p.m. He killed her and hid her face with a handkerchief. Then, he disguised himself with Dr. Sykes' jacket and mask that were there in the lab.
The culprit knew beforehand that Ponko charged up at 2 p.m. every day. So he waited for Ponko to come to the lab for her regular recharge.
By leaving Dr. Sykes' jacket on, the culprit tricked Bonko into thinking he was Dr. Sykes, thereby making it look like she was alive up until that point in time. All to disguise the real time of death.
Objection!
It's a nice theory, Mr. Wright, but I'm afraid that is just not possible. What? Why not?
The victim's jacket is clearly visible right there in the video. And that's right there is precisely the problem. The ID tag on the jacket at the scene confirms beyond doubt that it belongs to the victim. If the person who left the lab truly was wearing the victim's jacket, then how could it possibly have wound up back at the crime scene? What's going on? That doesn't make any sense. Edgeworth's right. If the culprit was wearing the jacket, how did it get back to the lab? The killer brought it back. The killer used the jacket as a disguise to make his escape, but in order to conceal that fact, he had to get the jacket back to the crime scene. So the culprit simply returned to the robotics lab later and planted it there. Contradiction resolved.
Objection!
Except it would have been impossible. The only person who came to the robotics lab after the killer were Prosecutor Blackwell and the people who reported the body. And they claimed that the jacket was there when they arrived. So, when do you propose a mysterious man of yours had a chance to return the jacket?
Puzzling question indeed.
When did the culprit have the chance to bring the jacket back? The culprit was there at the time of the crime. He could have easily put it back there.
Objection!
Oops, I got it wrong.
A security camera captured the man leaving the jacket after the murder. You realise you're contradicting yourself, don't you?
Yeah, of course I do. Who do you think you're dealing with here?
Well, I hope you also realise that you will now have to deal with this penalty.
Why can't these hurt less? When did the culprit... I meant to press that. I swear, guys. The only time that the culprit could have returned the jacket was when the body was found. Mr. Wright, do you realise the implication of that argument? I do. Most people, when they come across a murder, focus their attention to the body. The culprit could have taken advantage of that split second to plant the jacket. In other words, the true culprit of this case, the man known as the Phantom, was one of the first people to discover the body.
I never thought of that. Order in the court. What is the meaning of this, Prosecutor Edgeworth?
The body was discovered and reported by a group of 3 people. They were there to collect the space probe's capsule in preparation for the HAP-1 launch. One of those people had a special bag to transport the capsule in. Oh, you mean the shock-resistant bag? Correct. I suppose that if the jacket was in that bag, it could have been returned to the scene of the crime without anyone noticing. I'll see to it that you get the reports on those 3 people. You will? We should also check the facial recognition database for that robot. If this person felt the need to hide his face with the theatre mask, it might mean that his facial data was once registered.
But, Prosecutor Edgeworth, does this mean...
I have to admit, I believe Miss Sykes' memory is to be credible. You win, Wright. Not that this was ever an official trial, anyway.
You might ears deceive me. Prosecutor Edgeworth, are you actually conceding?
Is it true, boss? Does this mean...
I can't believe it! It's over! I won! I proved that both Athena and Prosecutor Blackwell are innocent. Your Honour, I see no need to further prolong this trial.
Objection!
Hold on, Mr. Wright. Have you forgotten who's in charge of this trial?
That's right. I'm the one who's supposed to say I see no need to further prolong.
Not you either, Your Honour. Now silence.
A little princess who was truly beloved by Matisse, and who repaid that love with death. All these years, hating Athena was the only thing that kept me going. But what do I do now? Can anybody tell me? How am I supposed to go on?
Miss Blackwell. How unlike you, Aura. Matisse was deeply passionate about her work, and she chose you as her partner. Isn't that? Shut up, Simon! You know exactly how I felt about her. Her respect as a co-worker wasn't all that I wanted.
And what did you want from her?
Did you really just go there, Your Honour?
Aura, there is something I've wanted to say, if you will lend me an ear. I have in my possession a lead on who Matisse's murderer is.
You do? Right, Dono, you asked me about the identity of the Phantom of 7 years past. That's right. The Phantom, the person Blackwell has been looking for, even from behind bars. 7 years ago, somebody hatched a plan to sabotage the Hat-1 rocket. The spy. But he was no ordinary spy. We knew naught about him, his background, appearance. We came to refer to him as the Phantom. At this time, I was working with the police to hunt him down. And then one day a miracle occurred, and I obtained a lead on him.
Oh, how exciting! What was the lead?
A recording of the Phantom's voice, but the quality was too poor for proper voice analysis. Yet I had hope. Aura's co-worker was a scientist who would analyze human emotions, so I asked her to evaluate the recording using analytical psychology. And that scientist was Dr. Sykes. Yes, Spy's greatest fear is to have his true identity discovered. In addition to Hat-1, Dr. Sykes' results and the recording were surely among his targets. But his search of the Space Center bore no fruit, so he must have started to panic.
He couldn't find them, but where could they have been?
Who is to say? Wow, I bet he's never let that out of his sight all these years.
How in the world did you smuggle them into prison?
Oh, I have my ways. What's more, my partner is especially talented at that sort of thing. I worked to lure the Phantom in by spreading rumors throughout the underworld. I was even granted permission to prosecute cases to attract the Phantom's attention. Just try to retrieve your identity, you bloody butcher, became my taunt. And what about the results Dr. Sykes drew up for you? Was there any useful information? Here, you can see for yourself. But take good care of it, it's all I have left of my mentor. I will. Better hold on to this real tight. Psychological profile classified. Emotional output of this voice extremely weak compared to typical voices. Subject deemed to have unique psychological makeup with almost no emotional fluctuation. No emotional fluctuation, huh? A spy who experiences no emotions. Not sadness, not anger, and naturally no fear. He is the very definition of a phantom, a monster with no heart, don't you see? This creature is the rot that destroyed our lives and set what ails us all into motion. Phantom indeed, a fitting name for the one who brought darkness to our world.
Well then, it seems a faint image of this man has started to take shape. Based on what we have learned, I'd like all of you to conduct further investigation. This is not a formal trial, but I do want to follow protocol. If I may, I'd like to hand down my verdicts and bring these proceedings to an end.
Whatever, do what you want. You'll hear no objections from me. Yes, please, Your Honor. It's over. It's finally over.
Very well. In that case, Prosecutor Blackwell, could you please take the stand? As a result of this trial, your innocence has been proven. The verdict handed down 7 years ago is hereby overturned. And now, the defendant of this current trial, Miss Athena Sykes.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Wright, thank you. Thank you for everything.
Athena, you're more than welcome.
If everyone is ready, I will now give my verdict. You! Apollo? What is the meaning of this?
Congratulations, Mr. Wright and Prosecutor Edgeworth. You uncovered the truth from 7 years ago and you saved Prosecutor Blackwell. However, I can't allow this trial to end just yet. Why, Apollo? Why would you do this to us? To be continued! Woo. Thank God, because I didn't know where to end that.